Moan.
Britain is cash-strapped. Our economy is struggling, our costs of living are going through the roof and public services are flatlining. But there is still one group in society who is incredibly wealthy and demanding more money from the state. Pensioners. Yes, they're demanding £140 billion a year in the cost of pensions because of the triple lock, rising £10 billion every year. And that's despite the fact that a quarter of pensioners are millionaires and their disposable income has doubled compared to the average worker in the last 10 years. I think it's time to stop lining the pockets of pensioners with Werther's Originals and start having a serious conversation.
20 seconds.
When young people can't afford to get on the housing ladder, should we really be taking billions from young and insecure workers and putting it in the pockets of pensioners, many of whom are now billionaires? Do the panel agree?
Oh, you came out 10 seconds early. That's 2 in a row that have come out 10 seconds early. Now, either that means that your argument is so good that you don't need that much time to explain it,
that is
or
the answer.
Your argument isn't good enough because you can't even fill 30 seconds. But you've heard what Benjamin has to say. Benjamin thinks that we should scrap the triple lock because it's unfair on young people. Do you agree with them? Get those calls in now. 0207 862 2222. Susan, what do you reckon?
How old are you, Benjamin?
31.
Yes. Well, you'll grow out of that, which is the good news for everybody else, actually. The one thing that I'm sure people, and I'm going to do this for the people at home who are now, I'm sure, throwing all sorts of objects at the television set. The one thing that we should be investing in is our old age, because with luck, we will all get there. And when we get there, we will find that life isn't as rosy, I think, as you painted. For you to say, you had your 60 seconds, so don't even open. You took a big breath
wasted the 10 seconds.
Yeah, you wasted 10 seconds, so I'm going to claim those myself. The thought that they
I'm
are...
used to old people telling me what to do, don't worry.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm 57. You can judge for yourself at home whether you think that's old or not. I personally do not.
Young.
It doesn't matter to me anyway. But what I do know is my mum's 82 and she fell and broke her pelvis a couple of weeks ago and she waited 12 hours for an ambulance and there was no support or care for her when she got home. And that is what people are facing. A quarter of people being... You actually promoted them from millionaires to billionaires, which I'm sure a lot of people at home will be very pleased to hear. You said billionaires the second time I wrote it down. He did, didn't he?
The second time.
He did, didn't he? Thank you. We have evidence. It's recorded. You're on the telly. You can't get away with that.
But look...
But the one thing we should be doing, let me just finish that point, is investing in older people and our old age, because we will all get there. And when we get there, I hope some people are rolling in Werther's Originals and going out playing golf all day. I suspect strongly that a lot of people are not. But that is what we should be able to look forward to.
I'm sorry, I'm sick of this selfish argument that people who are retired and get a pension, who are wealthy put, where they say, we should get this because we paid in. First of all...
They're not demanding it. They've
had your time.
It. They've earned it.
First of all, they did not pay in the amount they're taking out. It doesn't take an economist to figure out that the time they worked and the time that you're now going to be retired and the amounts they paid in compared to the amounts that are now being paid are not going to add up. And the fact is that really, if those wealthy pensioners, the quarter who are millionaires, really cared about the poorest pensioners, then the answer they'd be saying is we shouldn't get quite all of these benefits because we want to help the ones who really are struggling. And yet, weirdly, you never hear them say that.
Kulveer, what's your review on this?
Benjamin, it sounds like you're not saying that it's about pensioners and young people. It's about overall the distribution amongst pensioners. This is not a conversation. Which argument are you trying to have? Because if it's about pension reform and how does pension split between people, there might be a discussion around that. The government is desperately trying to get people to opt into their own pensions, look at different ways of spreading the cost over a different period of time. And also, how do we get younger people better set up for their period of time? But the end point here is that it is a long conversation. This is something that, when it comes to a point of you're actually at your pensionable age, you cannot change the goalposts for people because that's what they were targeting. What we do need to do is look at where people are now and how do we better structure the pensions conversation.
Sorry, what you just said, you
need
to be picked up on that because you just said you can't move the goalposts. The goalposts were moved in 2010 when the triple lock was invented. People talk about this triple lock, which guarantees
to keep them in step with rising costs of living.
But that's not what's happening. So pensions are going up this year faster than inflation. So you've got doctors on strike.
And yet we're still not in line with Europe. We pay our pensions.
It's not true either. You've got doctors and nurses who are in work who have been on strike for months because they can't afford basic costs while doing jobs that save lives. And pensioners who are millionaires are getting a bigger rise from the state pot. are. And as a Conservative peer, you should be fiscally responsible. And this is not responsible. When £140 billion, that's more than education, more than defence, more than the Home Office.
Protecting old people at a point when they need to be protected is being about being responsible. I think it would be thoroughly irresponsible if we weren't providing with the confidence of what they would be going to get through this cost of living crisis that is affecting every part of society. So I think that's what we do need to look for.
Above inflation rises.
No, I think you'll also find that the Chancellor is looking at how best to handle inflation against pensions, and make sure that they are protected as much as they can, because they are part of the most vulnerable in society at that point.
Kulveer, can I just step in there? Because actually, when we look at the triple lock pensions, what that essentially means is that pensions will go up with inflation or more than inflation. Can we sustain that with an ageing population indefinitely?
Look, I think that's a really good economics question. I don't have the answer for that, I'll be honest, because we must look at how it will be sustainable. But I think right now, we can't take that away from pensioners because they need to be supported through this point. And that's what I meant about not changing the goalpost.
You can't take away above inflation rises that no one else in society is getting.
It'll be at inflation or...
It's not at inflation, it's above inflation. Your government's doing that.
Yes, but it has to be done in a way that is fair to them at this point.
OK, I want to go to calls now. Pete from Nottinghamshire, what's your thoughts on this? You've heard what the panel has to say. There's no agreement there. What side of the debate do you fall on?
Good morning, Humphrey. I don't know my call to Huntley. Sorry about that.
All right, you can call me by my second name. It's quite a posh thing to do.
Brain freeze. Benjamin, who I normally agree with, I don't know where he gets this bit that I have been demanding money from the government. Believe you me, I can't even get in touch with my local Tory MP. I rang 4 times, left messages for staff. They don't even get back in touch with you to answer questions. That's how I think of the Tory party.
Okay.
And I'm not on I'm just on a state pension. Okay. I'm not a millionaire. Like most people who are on pensions are not bloody millionaires.
OK, but Pete, you've got people like Mick Jagger. I mean, I don't know whether these people are actually claiming, I know, Susan, you're going to come back at me. That Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, all of these people who are very wealthy could claim a pension. Should they be able to?
Hey, listen, they're a minority, a small minority.
It's irrelevant to the argument.
They're a quarter.
It's irrelevant. They're not Mick Jagger.
They are a quarter.
And Paul McCartney. No,
we're not talking about musical celebrities here. We're talking about wealthy.
Millionaires.
Well, in what respect, though? That might be because of a house that they have that has gone up in value. It's not cash in the pocket. And to bring up people like that, I think is really kind of... They've also paid a lot of tax, those sort of people, and have earned the right to kind of claim whatever they want back in the system because of the tax they pay, generally speaking. I don't know. I can't speak for other people whose financial affairs I don't know. I think it's completely irrelevant. And to keep going on about millionaire pensioners is just a way to make people think...
But it's not, though, Suzanne.
Do you know any pensioners?
I was raised by my grandparents.
That are actually going around, sailing around on yachts and... Like Pete just said, they've had everything else pulled from under them. They can't park the cars because they haven't got the app on their phone to kind of do that. They can't pay cash in the shops anymore. They can't get a doctor's appointment. The social care system has fallen away.
You make an unserious argument because this isn't about car parking apps. This is about the fact...
It's about being a pensioner in modern society.
When we have
what you need as a pensioner in modern society is a bit more cash flow and a bit of money, a security in your pocket to pay for all the things that should be there in society and are no longer. Okay, so you have to pay for it yourself.
The money in pensioners' pockets has risen twice as fast as the money in workers' pockets.
Good.
And that is simply unsustainable. And the thing is that easy populists like you can sit on programmes like this and you can say that we just doled it out because they worked hard. Of course they worked hard. It's not saying they didn't work hard or pay in. It's saying that in the real world, we have a set of money that doesn't go far enough for what we have to cover. When you have young people who can't buy houses, when you have young people in their 20s who can't afford basic things, even with jobs like nurses and sometimes junior doctors, then that is unsustainable. And you have to be serious. What other section of public spending would you say there is a blank cheque? Absolutely none. And I think that's not serious.
Susan makes an interesting point, though, because you brought up your mum earlier that was in the NHS and struggling to get appointments for things. And absolutely, the NHS is chronically underfunded. There is an argument to say...
it is underfunded. I think the money doesn't... It's mismanaged.
But you've brought up other things like parking... And it is tough as you get older. I just wonder whether keeping the triple lock and paying this level of pension is actually what pensioners need, or whether that money could be used to invest into society to make it easier for them to get about, to get an appointment with their GP.
It's a lovely idea, but once you've taken the money off them, how do you know those services are going to be provided? As we've always,
you have a government that you trust.
As we've already discussed, you can't trust what politicians tell you they're going to do. But what you can do is have pensioners who've got enough money to do what my mum had to do, which was pay for her own care for a couple of weeks because we needed some extra support after I couldn't go and live with her any longer. And that's what had to happen.
That's not what we want pensioners to have to do. We don't want pensioners to have to use this triple lock pension and their pension money to go private because the NHS aren't providing for it.
No. What we want is for pensioners to feel that they can be reassured about where they are, what they're going to receive, and how they can live through their old age, which is actually a point at the end of their life. I know Benjamin's talking about people then at the beginning of their life when they've still got lots of opportunity, a lot of things that they can do. But at the end of their life, when they've lived, when they've done everything, when they've invested, when they've grown up children, when they've given back to society, at that point, we have to look after them. And that's the social bond. That's the responsibility that we take. I think you are by saying that there are people that we should...
reality.
That is the reality, Benjamin. I think you fail to recognise that reality.
So
because I think it is perspective. Susan said earlier in the conversation, how old are you? There is perspective that comes in through age about saying, where are you at that point in your life? When you're in your 60s and 70s and 80s, when you look back at your life...
You won't be saying what you're saying.
I was raised by retirees, which is unusual, obviously.
But
let me say this to you. Hang on, let me ask you a question.
You weren't in their shoes. You were raised by them, but you weren't in their shoes.
Let me ask you a question. Where does it end? Where is too much, OK? Because you say broad-brushed things that we should look after pensioners. Of course, everyone agrees. Where is the line?
Okay.
Because that's the question we're dealing with.
We're going to end on a question on this part, but we are going to take more calls on this.